In this video, we will be talking about Station 5 and its time management. So we know from the last video that Station 5 is absolutely key for passing PACES, right? If you haven't seen it yet, do make sure you check it out in the link above. I'll link it there and also in the description. So Station 5 is absolutely vital for passing PACES, and so is its time management, because you have two cases to get through, okay, in their entirety, and you have a total of 20 minutes for two cases. So that's 10 minutes each, and that's 10 minutes for you to take a history from the patient, examine the patient, allay their concerns, deal with their concerns, provide a management plan to the patient, and also to answer questions by the examiners. Okay, so there are about 6 different things you need to do within that 10-minute time span for each case. So it's extremely important how you manage your timing here. Right, let's get started then. So in terms of the approach, I find that this is extremely variable for a lot of candidates, especially if you're starting out. It can be extremely confusing. So this is why I'd like to take you through a couple of approaches, and the one that I personally would recommend you take. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the timing. So each case is 10 minutes, and with the patient, you get about 8 minutes, right? But sometimes the examiner can stop you just before the 8-minute mark. So effectively, let's say you get about 7.5 minutes roughly, okay, per case. So that is all you get. And the question and answer with the examiner is about 2 to 3 minutes even sometimes, because they will want you to present back to them sometimes, not always, and also answer their questions regarding your management, and also they will want to quiz you on different aspects of the case or just your knowledge as well. Okay, so essentially time is very tight here. So with Station 5, you have a certain degree of freedom, but that freedom can cause confusion. So what I mean is that, not unlike the history or the examination stations, you need to do both here. So a lot of people are confused as to how you go about doing that. How do you split it? How do you manage it so that it is roughly the right balance that you can get to where you need to get to without compromising on your marks and the time. So what I want to tell you is that you can decide how you want to lead the station. Okay, you are the captain of the station over here. You direct how the station goes, and by that I mean it's up to you how you split the history and the examination. A lot of people will see this as a curse, but honestly, you can use this to your advantage. That's what I did. I'll show you what I did. So this is often, this is in fact one of the ways you can do it. So you can start off with traditional history taking and then move on to examination. Come back to history taking to ask questions after you've examined a bit, and then you go back to history, the examination again before you finally finish with the patient, and then move on to question and answer with the examiners. Okay, so that's the first model. The second model is you do just a lot of history, and then you do examination, and then you finish. And this is the one that I recommend. Okay, so you take a history, a certain amount, and you move on to examination, but you don't stop the history. Okay, that is the key thing here. You don't stop the history. You ask questions, relevant questions, focused questions, whilst you're examining the patient. You are allowed to do this. I did it and I passed, and I'm telling you this is allowed in PACES, and I would highly recommend that you do this as well. And you do this together. I know this is extremely difficult. Of course it is difficult. It will come with time and practice. That's why you practice, okay? It will be very difficult at the start, but you will get the hang of it if you do it enough times. And then after that you finish. or there are other ways as well, which I'm not going to go into because I honestly think they are, not worth doing personally. Um, yeah, so that's what I mean. So in terms of time management, for the history taking specifically, I have come up with what I call the golden ratio. So what do I mean by that? I call it the 40-60 split. Okay. So what this means is 40% of the time that you spend in the entire station, you spend purely on history. So that's roughly 3 minutes, okay? Out of the 7 to 7.5 minutes that you get with the patient. Remember, you need about 2 to 3 minutes for the with the examiners for question and answers. So you spend about 3 minutes roughly purely on history, okay? And then you move on over here to history and exam for the rest of the time. So you are getting a good chunk of the time to examine the patient whilst you are also asking questions. Okay, so this will guide you to this will give you a good idea of what to examine, okay, as to what relevant science you need to look for. You do need this, otherwise, you won't know what to examine. It will be pointless. So that's why this exists, okay? So you dedicate about 3 minutes, and then you move on to both history and exam, and then you finish off with the examiners, with the question and answers. So this is how I would split it. And it works, if you do it enough times, you will see that it works. In terms of prioritizing, I want to just give you a little bit more idea about the history taking and the examination. So with the history, when you are in those first 3 minutes, be very focused, okay? So you will already know what the patient has come in with from the scenario that's given to you. So be extremely focused in your questioning at the start, and you need to always think about the two things, and these are: what's the most serious thing that I need to rule out, and what is the most likely thing in this patient? Those are not necessarily the same thing. Okay, so for example, if a patient comes in with shortness of breath, okay, so let's say it's sudden onset shortness of breath, then the most serious things that you need to rule out are things like pneumothorax and pulmonary embolism. Okay, but the most likely thing may well be a different thing. It may well be that they have actually got a pneumonia, right? Or maybe it is infective exacerbation of COPD. That might be the most likely thing. Who knows? I'm just giving you an example. So that's what I mean by, the most serious and the most likely. You need to be always thinking about these things in history taking. With the examination, again, you need to be extremely focused, but also you need to think about the systemic side of things. So remember, right, you need to consider other systems when you are examining the patient, especially in the context of Station 5. Because in Station 5, you can examine the patient anywhere as long as it's relevant, okay? And as long as you can justify. You're not restricted to one system only. For example, okay, a patient has palpitations, for example, okay? So, of course, you would do their pulse and you would listen to their heart sounds, right? That's a given. But remember, you are also going to have a separate station in PACES where you are going to be tested on your cardiovascular examination. So don't do all of the entire cardiovascular examination during that station. Instead, focus on what's necessary and think about whether you need to examine the thyroid system, for example, the thyroid status. That is actually very relevant in someone with palpitations, isn't it? If you think about it. So that kind of thing. And similarly, things like examining the eyes, the hands, the gait, fundoscopy, all of these things are relevant. You need to be thinking about whether any of these things are relevant in the patient in Station 5. All right, so I hope you found this valuable. If you want more information and a fantastic way of learning PACES, you really should check out PACES course online, which is found on keenmedic.com. Also, there is a free webinar of PACES available to you for you to register. The link will be in the description below. I will see you in the next video.